French fries are one of the most recognizable foods in the world. They appear in menus in almost every single country, but their name might not really point to where exactly they come from. Today, I want to walk you through how French fries became French and how the story is more complicated than most people think. When people hear French fries, people usually assume one of two things. Either the fries came from France, or the term became a thing when American soldiers during World War I went there, they heard about it, then they came back and called them French fries. Both explanations are widely repeated, but neither of them really explain the story. To understand how French fries got their name, we need to separate the origin, the technique, and the language, because those three things are often confused. The phrase French fried potatoes appeared in English language writing as early as the mid-1800s, decades before World War I. This matters because it tells us something important. The term French fried already existed before American soldiers ever set foot in Belgium. So if World War I did not create the term, then what does French actually mean here? In English cooking language of the 18th and 19th centuries, French often referred not to geography, but to style. It implied a method associated with French cuisine, which at the time was considered the standard for refined cooking. In other words, French fried meant cooked in the French manner, rather than invented in France. France undeniably played a major role in popularizing fried potatoes. By the late 18th and early 19th centuries, pommes frites were common in Paris, particularly as street food. Frying techniques using large amounts of fat were well established in French cooking, especially in urban settings where oil and animal fat were more accessible. French cuisine also had something else that mattered enormously: influence. Cookbooks, chefs, and culinary language from France shaped how food was described across Europe and in English-speaking countries. When a preparation was associated with French cooking, it often carried more prestige and spread more easily. This influence helps explain why the name stuck, even if the origin remains disputed. Belgium, however, makes a really strong claim. Fries are deeply embedded in Belgian culture, often served in fry stands with different sauces as street food. The most famous Belgian origin story places the invention of fries along the River Meuse, where villagers supposedly fried potatoes in winter when fish were unavailable. This story is compelling and widely told. However, historians point out that written evidence for this story appears a lot later than the fries were actually invented, and the key primary sources have never been independently verified. There is also a practical concern. Deep frying requires significant quantities of fat, which would have not been easily available to poorer rural populations in the 1600s. So while Belgium might not be able to prove that they invented the fries, they do hold strongly something else: long-term ownership of fry culture. Now we return to World War I. American soldiers stationed in Belgium encountered fried potatoes being sold widely. The region was French-speaking, and the food itself already aligned with what English speakers called French fried. So soldiers calling them French fries makes sense, but not because they invented the term. Rather, the war likely helped popularize and reinforce a name that already existed. This is an important distinction. World War I did not invent the name, but rather it helped spread it. So why did French fries survive, but other names did not? Because names do not survive on accuracy alone. They survive on familiarity, repetition, and cultural authority. France had the culinary authority. Belgium had the practice. English already had the terminology. Once those elements aligned, the name became fixed. Over time, the original meaning faded, and the name became what we know today as French fries. This story highlights a larger truth about food history. Food is rarely invented in a single moment, by a single place, for a single reason. Techniques evolve, ingredients travel, names reflect power, language, and perception more than fact. French fries are not an exception to this. They are the perfect example of this. So, are French fries French? In technique, partially. In name, culturally. In origin, the evidence is mixed. What matters more is understanding how the story formed and how the name came to be. Because sometimes the most interesting part about food is not how it tastes, but rather how it came to be.